Welcome to the Krista Redpath Show, where sports take center stage and stories come to life. I'm your host, Krista, veteran analyst and passionate storyteller, bringing you weekly in-depth conversations and sharp analysis across the world of sports. The Krista Redpath Show, breaking down the game, elevating the story, and championing the female voice. Today's show is proudly brought to you by The Good Food Store. Looking for great value without giving up quality? At The Good Food Store, look for the tree. The Good Choices family of products is my go-to for everyday essentials at budget-friendly prices. From locally raised ground beef and cage-free eggs to organic dairy, pantry staples, and even supplements and body care, you'll find the Good Choices tree sign on items all across the store. When I'm shopping for everyday essentials, this is where I start. Just look for the tree. Premium quality, everyday value, no compromises. Stack up the savings with Good Choices at the Good Food Store, where there's always something good here. Today on the Krista Redpath Show, I'm honored to be joined by Jon Kasper, Senior Associate Commissioner for Championships and Media Partnerships for the Big Sky Conference. Jon grew up in Great Falls, Montana, graduated from the University of Montana in 1997 with a journalism degree and a broadcast emphasis, and began his career covering Griz athletics before eventually moving from telling the stories of this league to helping shape its championships and media partnerships. For more than 2 decades, he's served this conference in multiple roles, helping steward the events and partnerships that define the Big Sky year after year. He's also a proud husband to Mackenzie and father to Catherine and JJ, roles that remain central to how he approaches leadership and service. But before the title, before the conference office, before Ogden, there was home, there was family. There was the early lessons in Great Falls that formed the foundation for how he leads today. Jon, welcome into the show.
Well, it's an honor to be with you, Krista. Thank you.
So, Jon, before we get into the championships and the conference leadership, I want to go back to those Great Falls, Montana days, before your wife and kids, before the conference office, like your first foundation of your immediate family growing up. Like, what was your home life in Great Falls like? Talk about those early memories.
You know, I was born in North Dakota and didn't move to Montana until I was in the 8th grade. And it was hard at first because I left my grandparents in North Dakota, who I was very, very close to. And so that was hard. But looking back, I couldn't be more happy of my family moving to Great Falls and the memories I have of Great Falls and going to CM Russell High School, getting to play for Jack Johnson, all the things that I learned from him, and just great memories. I miss Great Falls a lot. I have not been back there in 12 and a half years now. So I really, really hope I can get back there sometime before my 30th, or my 40th high school reunion. I don't want to say that, but yeah.
Well, Jon, it's such a special place. I mean, we're both from, we both had formative years there. Let's say that.
Yeah.
And I love any time I can get back there, especially when I can go eat at El Commodore or enjoy Taco Tree, some of the Great Falls staples for food.
Yeah, and some that aren't there anymore, like Burger Man.
So close. That was so close to Great Falls High. We used to go over there quite a bit back in the day.
We had one by CMR too.
That's right. You did have one on the other side, the west side. We didn't like venture over to the west side. I think it was very much east side, west side.
Absolutely, yes.
So you graduated from CMR in 1993, and you were part of that 1992 AA championship team under legendary coach Jack Johnson. So you played 4 years of football, 3 at quarterback, before you made that move to wide receiver your senior year. What do you remember most about that 1992 championship year?
Just how fun it was. And Coach Johnson's son, Mark, was on that team and was a leader. And Mike Hannenberg, who is now like the athletic director of both the high schools. And those two, I mean, from the time they were born, grew up around CMR football.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this feeling like we were destined to win the state title, having those guys. And we had a very strong senior class. Lost a game early in the season to Helena Capital, who had like Jason Crebo and Andy Larson, and lost a game late in the year to Missoula Big Sky. And so we had to go on the road. Back then, only 4 teams made the playoffs. And, we had to go on the road and we beat Big Sky and then upset Capital in the state championship game. And, our defense was really, really, really good. They're what led us to a state title. And We had Ryan Leaf as our quarterback, who became the starter maybe the third or fourth game of the season, and kind of helped our offense and allowed our other quarterback, Davis Almanza, to move to receiver slot back, and he was an electric type player who he ended up playing at Montana Tech, I believe. So we just had a really good senior class, and we're very committed because I think the expectation was that we were supposed to win the state title because Coach Johnson's son was on the team, and but it wasn't easy. We were not the best team all season long, but I think back to that day we won the state title, and looking back, how amazing Coach Johnson was in game planning and preparation, because we made just so many changes on what we did in 1 week on offense to try to catch them off guard a little bit.
Well, I feel like Jack Johnson has been brought up on my show regularly, as I had Dave Dickinson on back in October. But what do you think makes Jack Johnson different as a leader, Jon?
He just commands respect. And I mean, I don't know if in today's world he would be as effective, because I think parents would not tolerate some of those things. But we talk about it when we get together, our friends, and how fortunate we were to play under him and learn the lessons about being a man and discipline. And I think that you'd hear that. You've heard it from Dave. I listened to your interview, and all the great players who came through his program who played college ball, but even those that didn't play college ball, like myself, I revere him. I respect him. I feel honestly so blessed I got that experience to play under him. And because I was friends with Mark, to actually, go over to his house and go to his cabin up that he had near Augusta, and those memories. And I just feel really fortunate to have that experience.
You also played basketball your freshman and sophomore years, tennis your senior year, and 1 year of Legion baseball. How do you think playing multiple sports helped shape you, Jon?
I just think that's what we did. It gave us direction. It gave us purpose. That every different season, you were doing that sport. And I know in today's world, there's a lot of I only play one sport. I'm committed to one sport. And there's travel ball, and my daughter got involved in that with soccer, and they just wanted her to be a soccer player. And I know in our world, and that coaches want kids with diverse backgrounds that play different sports. So I loved sports from the time I was a little kid. So it didn't matter what it was. I mean, going out for tennis my senior year.
I love that.
Because the track coach wanted me to come out for track, and because I had a pretty good 40-yard dash time. I had no desire to do track and field. So one of my best friends was one of the best tennis players on the team, and he was like, just come out for tennis. So I got a friend on the team, so I did it my senior year and got to play some doubles, and just a fun experience. I wasn't a great tennis player, but I made the top 10 on occasion, so it was fun.
Well, another big sport in Great Falls that I think doesn't get as much recognition is Legion baseball. And which out of all the sports that you played do you think really stretched you the most mentally?
Oh, football, easily, because I did play quarterback for 3 years, so you had to know the ins and outs and the
everything.
Offense.
That is the main person on a team that has to know everything.
Dave Dickinson was the quarterback my freshman and sophomore year, and we won 2 state titles and never lost a game. And I mean, I wasn't playing varsity, but you played freshman and sophomore ball.
Yes.
And then you looked up to those guys, and when you were sophomores, you spent part of practice with those guys. And so I would practice in the quarterback drills with Dave and see him and learn from him. And then, my senior year, Ryan was our quarterback. And so I tell people, I had 2 really good quarterbacks. I don't know if I was really bad or they were just really good. And I know the answer to that, but it's, that's a cool story to tell people that, from Great Falls, Montana, you had Dave that, won a national title, Walter Payton Award winner, is in the CFL Hall of Fame. And, Ryan was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy and the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. I don't think there's a lot of people that can say that about their high school experience.
Jon, when you look back now, what did those Great Falls years really build in you?
Well, the ability to hit a golf ball in the wind, number one.
So true.
Just the small town mentality, and you got to work. You got to work, fight, claw. Nothing's given to you. That's how I feel, and that's probably why I feel so strongly connected to this day to Great Falls, even though, like I said, I haven't been there in 12 years. I don't have family that lives there anymore. But when I get together with my friends, we talk about it, and we don't live there anymore, but those memories and now seeing what we're all doing and being successful, and we all kind of came from that same place and that same space.
Do you think that competitive drive within you came from the field, or did it come from home?
Oh, definitely the field. Like my parents were not like competitive athletes or anything like that, and so me, I just liked to compete. And then I remember when I was a freshman, and I had only lived in Great Falls for a few months, and it's like, I don't even know if I want to do this football thing. And then, when I found out like what a big deal it was and kind of how big football was in Great Falls, like, okay, I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go after it. And, one of the reasons I kind of didn't do basketball and baseball later in my high school career is I really, really wanted to work and, become a starter. And that happened at wide receiver. I really wanted just to focus in on trying to do what I could to have one really good year playing football.
So, Jon, you then head to the University of Montana. Was that a decision that was easy for you, or did you look at other schools, or what made you choose the University of Montana?
Probably because they had they had a journalism program, which I was very interested in and wanted to do, and it was close to Great Falls, and half of my really good friends were going to school there. So, and I had loved Missoula when I had chances to go there. And so it just worked out. It really wasn't a hard decision. I wasn't getting recruited to play sports. So it wasn't like I was waiting on an offer from this school or I had visited this school. It wasn't like that. I was just going to go there to do academics.
Well, I find it really fascinating, athletes that choose to go into journalism and broadcast journalism, because I feel like that there's such perspective there, right? With being a player, that you bring that to your profession. And so was it always journalism? Is that something that you were even interested in while you were an athlete, or why broadcast journalism?
Krista, I was the type of kid that I remember being like in the 5th grade, and I would go to watch our girls basketball team in the 5th grade, and I would keep their stats.
Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, I devoured ESPN, and my dream was to be an anchor on SportsCenter, and so yes, I mean, from a very young age, that had interest to me, and growing up in Great Falls, reading George Geis, Scott Manch, Mike Town.
Weren't they awesome? I mean, the Great Falls Tribune was phenomenal in the day.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different time. Our young listeners today wouldn't probably understand, the newspaper and what a big deal it was to get your name in the newspaper. Yeah. Even, Krista, when you were a freshman, probably scoring 40 points a game for Great Falls High and getting that little write-up.
Right.
Like in Thursday, whatever section it was, when they did the recaps of all the freshman games for that year. What a big deal it was to be included.
Well, I didn't have a great first impression. So Scott Manch, this is really interesting. I was 15 years old, and I called and left him a voicemail that was not very, it was actually kind of not real nice, but he wrote an article called "The NBA Will Not Crumble Without Bird's Existence" when he retired. And I couldn't believe he would write that. And literally, little did I know I was going to end up making varsity basketball, and he was going to have to interview me like the next week. But he was like, who is this fireball? Who is this Krista Redpath who's calling me up asking me, why would you ever write something like that? And that is how Scott Manch and I began our friendship. And I'm telling you, he can write and he can cover sports. And we were surrounded by some of the best in Great Falls. So kind of a funny Scott Manch story for you.
Absolutely. It doesn't surprise me about you either that you can do that.
Yes. So you were part of the Sigma Chi fraternity in Missoula. And I feel like that's such a brotherhood, Jon. I feel like there's a lot of CMR graduates that were involved with that fraternity. But can you tell us about that, was what that was like being in a fraternity and those friendships that you formed?
Yeah, and it was a lot of Great Falls guys, a lot of Billings guys, but there were also a lot of out-of-state people, and that's what I loved about it. Like living in a house amongst diverse people, guys from Georgia, guys from Minneapolis, or that weren't born and raised in Montana. Pennsylvania is another one that I can think of, and just getting to know those guys and being part of something. And we did a lot of good things for the community. We had a lot of parties, no doubt about it. Social was a good time, and I just really enjoyed it. And it's, a great networking thing that still today you can utilize to network, meet people that have that Sigma Chi background. Although, they're not, the fraternities and sororities aren't a real big thing at the Montana schools. But even it's really cool. Adam Jones, the running back at Montana State, his dad was one of my fraternity brothers at Montana. So, seeing him in the national championship games, or running him into Bozeman, and his mom's from Great Falls. She grew up 100 yards away from me in Great Falls. So like that's just a really cool thing.
So what did covering Griz athletics teach you about the league?
Oh boy. That I loved it. Like, I loved the people, I loved the coaches, I loved the student athletes. And when I was in college, I was fortunate to work at the Missoulian, and I got to, cover some Lady Griz volleyball, Lady Griz soccer games, and didn't really get to cover Lady Griz basketball, but did do a couple of games, like in the tournament one year. I remember, Trish Bader back then at Boise State, and watching her play in one of the tournament games in Missoula. And so just loving the people, loving the schools, loving the cities.
Did you ever envision that would end up being a part of your career, or that you'd envision working in administration?
No, that wasn't it. No, not really. Not at all.
So you joined the Big Sky Conference in 2004. Like, what pulled you from journalism into administration, or why take that big plunge to working for the Big Sky Conference, Jon?
Well, that's a multi-layered story. I was really needed to get out of Missoula. I was going through a very difficult divorce. We didn't have children. I knew I needed to start my life over. And I had become really good friends with the guy who ran the media relations department at the Big Sky Conference. His name was Dusty Clemens. He's now the deputy athletic director at the University of Minnesota. And he called me one day in August of 2004. I think I was out at a Griz practice. Fall camp had started, and he said, "Hey, I'm taking a job at the University of Wyoming. I think you would be a perfect fit for this position." So long story short, I interviewed maybe a week later, and within a month I had moved to Utah, and my mom and dad and brother and sister had moved here. And so it just worked out just perfectly, like to move to a place and be close to my family again. And here we are 21 and a half years later, and I'm still here.
Was that transition difficult? I mean, was it one of those challenging professional transitions where you really missed covering sports, or did you go right into still covering sports? Like, what did it look like as your early years for the Big Sky?
So I was still, but when I came here, I was running our media relations department.
Okay.
So it was still a lot of writing, still working with media people, a lot of them who I knew. So from that, it wasn't hard. It was obviously you're on a different side of it, and you're promoting and quite honestly, when I first came to the Big Sky on my first day, and I opened the computer program that we did our press releases on, It was about 5 generations older than what I was used to working at the Missoulian, like doing page design and graphic design stuff. So after my first year, I was like, we have to upgrade these things. Like, these are ancient and you can't really use these things. And, it was things like those first few years, designing a website from scratch, getting a new website, and the advent of social media and being part of, creating the first conference Facebook pages and first conference Twitter pages. But yeah, and then there was the administrative part where you're dealing with coaches and athletic directors in a totally different way than you are as a media person. So yeah, you learn a lot going to those first, sitting in the meetings for the first time with athletic directors and seeing what it's really like from that side of it. Yeah, there were challenges, absolutely, but I really did love it. I mean, I'm still here 20 some years later.
I know you've seen the league evolve so much, though, Jon, over the last 20 years. You're at the top of the leadership. You're at the very top now, serving under our commissioner, Tom Wistersill. And I think that's like really impressive that you not only stuck with the Big Sky Conference, but you've been a part of that evolution. Like, what does your role look like as the Senior Associate Commissioner of Championships and Media Partnerships? What does that look like day to day?
So every day's different. Right now we're just heavy into planning for Starch Madness in Boise, 28 days, tickets on sale, planning every aspect of that that our staff does. But, we have like 14 other championships throughout the year. So
right.
Planning, executing, branding for all those. And then, so that's about, probably 40% of my job. I spend a lot of time on the TV side. So I work, with scripts, work with ESPN, do a lot with our schools and their ESPN Plus productions. Mm-hmm. We're in year 5 of that. So, our schools pretty much know the drill. So that doesn't take as much time anymore, but, working with the schools to make sure that we're putting on quality broadcast that the fans enjoy. They produce over 600, almost 700 events during the year. So there's a lot with scheduling and making sure ESPN has all the proper schedules, the proper times. So every time like there's a schedule change and a game time changes, making sure ESPN is alerted to that they get it fixed on their back end. And then there's just a lot of administrative things that I'm involved with day to day. So you never know in this business from day to day. I mean, when I left here Friday, North Dakota State was an FCS member, and I come back today, and they're going to the Summit League. So
right,
or excuse
Mountain
me,
West. Yes,
for football. So you just never know day to day.
One area professionally that I want to touch upon, and I'm not sure that people even understand the national part to your job. You served nationally, including chairing the NCAA Division I Women's Golf Committee. That is huge, Jon. What did that mean to sit at a national table like that?
It was one of the best experiences of my life. Number one, I love women's sports. I love promoting the women in our conference, and to get to be a part of the NCAA National Championship for golf. Mm-hmm. I mean, I told them I would have stayed on this committee forever if they would have allowed me to do it. So those were great experiences. The first 2 years, the national championship was down in Scottsdale, Arizona. And the previous 2 years, it was at La Costa in San Diego.
Beautiful.
Which looks like it's going to hopefully be a home for the men's and women's golf championships. And, to see those student athletes, I mean, those are the best amateur golfers in the world that are playing women's collegiate golf. And, I mean, I was around Rose Zhang, who was at Stanford for 2 years, won the NCAA championship, won her debut on the LPGA Tour about 3 weeks after winning her second NCAA national championship. So just being a part of that in the planning process, working with the NCAA throughout the year to make sure that the regionals are run the way they want them to be run. And it was just a tremendous experience. So I'm excited. I still get to do some regionals this year at Stanford, but my wife will be very happy I'm not going to the national championship, because between regionals and national championships, it was about 15 16 dates gone in the month of May.
So, Jon, how do you advocate when you get into a room on that national stage for a conference like the Big Sky?
That's a great question, because when you're on a committee like that, your goal is to make the entire sport better.
Right.
How can we make the entire sport better? So when I go into that room, or, we're part of the selection process, I have to view it through that lens, and not necessarily the lens of I'm here representing the Big Sky. And you have coaches and administrators on that committee, and some are Power 4 people and some are mid-major people. And you definitely, though, get, you can see that they're pushing their agenda, and us mid-majors are still trying to say, no. Here's an example. There's a thing called the 500 rule, where every sport in the NCAA had it except for women's golf, which means that if you don't finish your record above 500, you're not eligible to get an at-large bid into the NCAA championship. And so because it wasn't in women's golf, what was happening is a lot of the Power 4s only schedule against each other.
Interesting.
And all we're asking for is a chance. If you put Sacramento State from our league has been a very good women's golf program, and all they ask is for a chance to get invited to some of those tournaments to prove themselves.
Right.
That they can beat some Power 4 schools. And when we implemented it and it went into effect last year, it did help some of our schools get into tournaments with more Power 4 schools, because those Power 4 schools have to schedule some tournaments where they think, know they're going to win. They're going to get wins over the field. A lot of the Power 4 coaches were not very happy about it. And there were probably 4 or 5 schools that did not make the NCAA tournament because they did not finish above 500. But I think to grow the game, you need to include, just because it's Northern Arizona, doesn't mean they can't compete against some of the Power 4 schools. You just got to give them the chance. And when you're shutting them out, it's not right and it's not fair. So I always fought for the 500 rule, because I think it did help the Big Sky, but I thought that's how you help grow it. So it's not the same 20 schools every year that are winning and competing. And maybe it doesn't affect it, but it makes our coaches were definitely in favor of it.
Well, Jon, as I listen to what you're saying, it's just incredible to me, the different facets of what you have to cover. You have so many different avenues and sports and conferences and different things that you have to navigate through leading the Big Sky. One of the challenges, I think, and I'm going to be, I'll ask you candidly, I'm not sure how much you can comment on it, but what do you think about the trajectory of how NIL now is affecting our athletes, and especially our Big Sky Conference, right? It feels from a basketball perspective as if a lot of these programs bring in or develop a kid to watch them, leave the league because we just can't afford to keep them. Give me your thoughts on that.
Look, I'm all in favor of student athletes being able to make money. No problem with that. But the transfer policies right now, I just feel are out of control. And we have to understand it's hard, right? You watch our coaches always have to find talent, develop talent. And now that talent moves on. I mean, you were able to get Damian Lillard on your show last week. And I mean, I would love to sit down with him sometime. And as loyal as he is, which he talked on your show about loyalty.
Right.
If after his freshman year, if he could have entered the portal and been offered $1 million, would he have stayed at Weber State? Same thing with like a Cooper Kupp.
Right.
I just worry that we're going to see fewer and fewer of those type of athletes who our coaches find, develop, that they're not going to stay and leave a true legacy at a school, which I think is important. And obviously not as important as a couple $1 million, but I get it.
Right. And you do think about that. Legacy is just not something, I won multiple championships for Montana. I was part of, and it's in the past now, and it is in the Robin Selvig era. But we were winning championship after championship, year after year. And you look at even like a Coach Binford, last year she gets a storied 30 wins. Just incredible, Jon, to get 30 wins. She loses a lot of her players. Mara Dykstra gets paid. She's going to Michigan State. Natalie Picton ends up going down to Sac State. We got Lexi Deaton, who goes to Colorado State. You can't fault these kids, right, for moving on and accepting the financial gains. But as a head coach, it's so hard to look at that and think, how can I sustain? How can I get us to another championship? Right. Because that's what's going to help our NCAA seeding, right? Montana State has some great wins. They beat Colorado in the non-conference, and that gave them a quad 1 win. And that the committees are looking at that type of thing if they are to go ahead and turn the tables and win the championship and get a bid to the NCAA tournament. Those consecutive years are what is going to help get the Big Sky Conference a better seeding. And so it's hard because, right, there's a give and take there.
Yeah. Building, to me, coaches who want to build cultures and build programs, it's so hard. They're building teams year to year. And now that you said that, I can't imagine Robin Selvig in 1995 having to deal with this, and the great late Skylar Cisco, would she have, how much money she would have been offered, or a Holly Tyler, or a Brooklyn Lorenzen,
or a Mandy Morales, some of the younger names that are coming along. Right. You're right. And here we are, we're all broke college students, right? I didn't need a lot in Missoula, needed enough where I could play basketball every day, go out, live together in a house where y'all, pool together your money for rent. Things were a lot more simple. However, had someone have put money in front of you and said, hey, so here's door number 2 over here, and this is what you get. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. So it's changed the college game, and it's worthy of dialogue. And I think it is hard on our coaches, our mid-major, our, just blue-collar coaches that we have in the Big Sky Conference that are doing it for the right reasons. And it's hard because you're re-recruiting your own roster year after year.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why people like Bobby Houck, I think of Randy Ray, a longtime Weaver State coach. Those are guys that are culture builders, they're program builders, and you know what? They're just like, I'm done with this. This is not what I signed up for.
Well, Jon, you've changed a lot of lives, mine included. You took a chance on me in 2014, 2015. You made the call and asked me to do the last regular season host tournament in Missoula. And I'm forever grateful to you because it launched my entire career in my television side of my life. But when you give someone an opportunity like me, what are you looking for?
People with passion and people that care about the Big Sky Conference. Those are the types of people I want to see on our games as talent. Mm-hmm. I get calls and emails all the time from, people wanting to work, but a lot of them are just wanting a paycheck. They don't care about our conference. Mm-hmm. And so that's always been important to me. And I couldn't be prouder of you and just watch you grow in this and what you're doing now from where, it started 11 years ago. And you and I didn't know each other.
I know.
We grew up in Great Falls, but
my mom had your brother in school. Yeah. So, we knew our families, and I knew who you were, but we didn't have that relationship.
And I was so intimidated by the Lady Griz basketball players in college. I was so afraid I would never talk to you ladies. So I went to a lot of your games, but yeah, you guys were superstars. And so we didn't know each other, mm-hmm. but I had heard you had done some radio when we were, and having women voices in women's basketball mm-hmm. game, doesn't matter if it's women's or men's. But I think it's really, really important, especially on the women's side, to have women's voices telling those stories. And so, I'm proud of what you've done. And, I helped Amanda Pflugrad is another one.
Isn't she just doing great things?
Sons.
Yes.
I helped her get her first on-air experience at a basketball game. on altitude.
I fanned her. I've reached out to her, just fanning her when she was covering the Boston Celtics. And obviously, huge fan of the Pflugrad family, very close to the University of Montana with Robin Pflugrad. And I've just been so proud of her. And I'm watching her just kill it. And Jon, I did not know that you were responsible for helping her as well.
Yeah, helped her. And, Jenny Kavnar, obviously, she was making
Jenny.
She was doing great things on her own. But having her call our play-by-play at our women's basketball championship, I think has helped her in her career. And, now being the first female Major League Baseball full-time announcer with the Athletics. So those are things I'm proud of, that just even a small part able to help people, build their careers. So, very proud of all that you're accomplishing, and love these long-form interviews you're doing, and obviously the work you do for Scripps and us at the Big Sky during the tournament. So
let's talk about the growth of the neutral site tournament. So having called all of them now, and we started in Reno and then just found a home in Boise, we've watched it just grow, Jon, and that has been on your back. And this has been something that you have been very passionate about. But let's talk about this, because I feel like there has been, every year we have growth. We find more fans that want to come experience the week in Boise with all of us.
Yeah, it has grown, and we have a great staff here. It's not all me. With this event, it is everyone in this office has a role in making it successful. We understand that there's always going to be fans that wish it was the old way, but for a lot of reasons, logistically, planning, it's so hard. It's so expensive to do those tournaments. And when you don't know where you're going, parents, people don't think about that, like them wanting to travel and watch. International students, they know they're going to Boise. They know they're going to play these days. They can do that planning ahead of time. It's been fun to watch it. We still have so much room to grow it. And we just keep trying and trying and trying to get more fans to travel there, to engage more of our alumni in Boise to get out and support their teams. And just fans of college sports that, you can't beat that. You got 18 games in 5 days, wall to wall, every day, basketball, men, women. And these are kids just for the passion. They love to play it for the right reasons. And I still feel in the Big Sky, we try to do college athletics the right way. And that's every year in our basketball tournament.
I feel like Idaho Central Arena is awesome, but the Grove, too, the energy around the Grove, all of the different eateries and restaurants right around the arena. If you want to have a great week, come to Boise, because the food is phenomenal. I feel like the basketball is great. And what I also love about it is being able to kind of progress with the teams and be a part of something, right? And you get a chance to really feel that championship environment. I know we all feel it because we're running it and we're working it, but I feel that from fans too, Jon.
Yeah, absolutely. And I ran into Bobcat fans in Nashville, and they were like, we come every year and we love it. We have a great time. And we just want to spread that word. Because you're right. You can fly to Boise and not have to rent a car, because there's hotels, restaurants, everything you need right downtown.
Got a Trader Joe's right there. You just got everything.
Trader Joe's, you got Mod Pizza, you got Chipotle. They got that food hall right across the street from the arena. Tons of really nice restaurants. And downtown Boise is so clean.
Yes, it is.
It's safe. Everything feels so new. And the arena is a perfect size for us, where, with only 5,000 seats, if we get 2,500 people in there, it's a great environment. So.
Well, and I love it because it's a hockey arena. And so I feel like the fan environment is right on top of the floor, just similar to Dahlberg Arena, where the fan environment, you pack thousands of fans in there and it just feels like you've got 10,000 in there.
You don't like it, though, because your feet get cold, because the ice is...
I definitely bundle up. I've learned to bundle up. Now,
we bring a little heater down for Krista.
Yes.
Her feet warm.
When we were calling 4 games in a day, which we've changed the format now, and I had a nice laugh with Coach Cravens on my show last week about those days where we were calling 4 games in a day. Now, Jon, that's a lot of basketball.
It is, and I heard that interview, and I think there were some times there when the last year we were doing that 4 games in a day, where we were like, I don't think Joe can do this anymore, because by that 4th game he was a little out there. So not that he's not always, but no, this is a great format where we have 2 games from each gender, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then have the championship games on Wednesday. And next year, when we have 11 teams, what we're going to do is we're just going to start the tournament on Friday with just 1 men's game and 1 women's game. And we're going to have the 10 and 11 seeds play and kind of feed into the tournament. And that way we can keep the format the same
that's great.
way.
That's great.
Previously, when we had 11 teams, we had that odd format where there was one day where we played 5 games with 3 men's games.
Yes.
The first starting at 9 in the morning.
Right.
And that was those days, like, it's a labor of love, but I mean, there are days we're putting 16 to 18-hour days in for a week straight. So when we come back from that tournament, I spent a couple days where I barely move, which does not make my wife happy.
That's a really great segue into the last part of what I want to talk about, which is your family. And Jon, you do a lot of traveling for your job. And one thing I've noticed, you always give so much thanks to everyone around you. You're so gracious, and you always make sure that you give your wife praise for holding it down at home and taking care of the family, because this is not easy to have a job where you are wanted and needed by so many different people. So you've talked about what your family means to you, Mackenzie, Catherine, and JJ, and this role, it requires just these long days. So how do you navigate, the tension between serving a conference that you have all those needs and then being present at home?
So I'll be quite honest with you, I'm not the best at it.
That's okay. I think it's good to say that. We're not always so great at everything and balancing it.
That I've struggled with. And it can be hard. Some of these trips, it's not like you're gone for 2 days.
Right.
And when we leave for Boise, we're there for 8 nights. I try to check in, once a day to see how things are going. But some days it's hard. And like I said, 15 days in May doing golf tournaments. And I mean, quite frankly, it's very selfish of me. But it's what kind of she knew going into it, and it's harder with kids, like missing soccer games and, when the kids were younger, and it's probably impacted my relationship with them in not the greatest way, that they probably resent sports a little bit. So it's honestly something that I trying to work on now,
right?
And trying to have good relationships with them and help them understand and, see how hard I work, but it's really, I work for them to provide for them.
So from Great Falls to serving this league for more than 2 decades, when you strip away that title, is there anything that you would like to let us know about what you would want to leave the Big Sky?
Just that I had passion and I cared about people. And I had passion for our student athletes, and hopefully people will. I try to be a good person first and foremost, treat people the way that they want to be treated. So those are the things, I guess, that is important.
Jon, is there anything else you'd like to add? This hour has flown by and I could just keep going because I absolutely love talking about all of this, but is there anything you want to add that we missed? Mental
health is something that I care a lot about, and I want people, the stigma, I want us to get rid of that and to be able to talk about it. Life is hard. Life is challenging. And there is nothing wrong with seeking help, seeking therapy. I go to therapy every other week, and I've been doing it. I did it weekly for a long time, just to help me become a better person, to help me become a better dad, to help me become a better colleague. If people are struggling, because, man, it is hard. This world is hard.
It is.
Life is hard.
And there's a lot of pressure even on our athletes too, Jon. I mean, I look at, reaching out and knowing that it's not easy playing in front of fans that like to give you their opinion on everything. And I always think as a color analyst, that she didn't try to miss that shot. Trust me. She didn't try to miss it.
Right.
She didn't try to turn the ball over. And so I definitely have a soft spot for that, and I see it from the other side, but I do think that we put a lot of pressure, and it's also instant access to information, right? Everyone gets to give their opinion right then. And so I love that you are bringing that up and advocating for mental health across the forum of in administration on down to our athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gambling is another thing people don't think about. We just got a report from our company, and there was over $150 million gambled on Big Sky football this year, and it was a 71% increase over 2024. So in this world of social media and student athletes being out there, like they get messages. And, you know, we have a safety net in place with this company out of Las Vegas to help us navigate those things. But that is a threat. Sports gambling. And you've seen
right
in the last 4 or 5 months, 2 major news stories break: NBA, college basketball. And so that's another, like, that goes into the mental health piece. That shot that was missed that she didn't want to miss, that might have cost someone a lot of money.
Well, and it's just great to know that the league's looking out for that. I mean, it's just one more reason why the Big Sky Conference to me is a relationship league, and you are looking out for the best interest of our athletes and our programs. And so Jon, it's just awesome that you brought that up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for joining me today, Jon. And it won't be long till I get to see your face down in Boise for Starch Madness. And so I just want to thank you for taking the time with me today.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored that you thought to have me.
Thanks, Jon. All right, everyone, welcome in. This is Around the Big Sky in Women's Hoops with Hall of Fame coach Carla C.T. Taylor, former Weber State standout and the program's all-time winningest coach. Each week, I am honored to have CT join me to break down the matchup, storylines, and rising stars shaping women's basketball across the Big Sky. Proudly brought to you by the Big Sky Conference, where experience is elevated. CT, welcome in.
Hi, Krista. Happy to be here and lots to talk about, as always, around the Big Sky and women's basketball.
Well, isn't it crazy? But we are here in February. This is the final stretch. We are heading into Boise in about 3 weeks. Yes. And so this last week, we just certainly had some great play in the Big Sky. We've had some shakeup in the standings. Yes. I mean, CT, where do you want to start?
Let's start with the Idaho-Montana State game. What a brilliant defensive scheme by Coach Arthur Marrero and he and his staff. And I just was so impressed with what they did by putting their post player on the point guard, but keeping the post in the paint so that it took away Montana State's drive. So everybody else is playing a man defense, so they're defending their player. And then the post player's parked in the middle of the paint. And basically, the post is guarding, that 5 players guarding the point guard and saying, okay, you shoot a million times and you beat us, but we're not going to let everybody else beat us. And it was brilliant defensive scheme by the University of Idaho, who wins that 73-70 in overtime. And just really impressed with the scheme to come up with that.
Yeah.
And for Montana State, they haven't seen that. So, you know, what adjustments can you make during the game? And now the Vandals are leading the Big Sky at 10-1 and Montana State at 10-2.
Idaho, I agree with you. It was really fantastic. I mean, Deb Dos Santos comes in. So Lorena Barbosa gets her normal 16 minutes, but Deb Dos Santos, 29 minutes off the bench. She finishes with 14 points, but also 17 rebounds.
Yes.
Okay, that's like Courtney Grossman numbers.
She just turns around and rebounds everything off the glass. It was incredible. It was such a smart move by Coach Marrero.
So Idaho just takes care of business on the glass. I mean, 57-43. And you're right. That was a huge part of the game plan that Arthur Marrero put together. But they also scored points when they needed to. Kira Gardner had herself a game with 18 points. Again, Idaho just balanced offense. They get 9 players to score.
Right.
CT, I mean, that's just amazing.
Right. And University of Idaho, their bench points were 28 to Montana State's 14. So they double them up on bench points. But, just looking at Idaho, and we knew how impressive they were going to be at the start of the season and all their weapons and just what a great recruiting job they've done at the University of Idaho. But to get a senior like Kira Gardner to add to that bunch, I think she's kind of been the X factor for them. And, that's a great get out of Washington State, a transfer, and Gardner leads the scoring in their win over Montana State. And she's played at a high level. So those kind of games, you get some experience that you don't have from other players.
Well, and I think that Coach Marrera kind of cracked Coach Binford's method of just the turnovers, because Idaho did have 27 and they were turned into points, but they had answers every single time. And that's one thing about Idaho. They put on that defensive pressure, but then they have the offensive weapons that can get it done on the other end. One thing that I wanted to note is it was pretty amazing in the ICCU arena. They had close to 1,700 fans.
Yes. Second largest crowd this season.
I loved it because this last week I was listening to the Idaho Vandal Insider, the podcast, and Coach Alex Pribble, the men's coach, actually put out a challenge to all the sororities and fraternities, which are really big in Moscow, that absolutely. If they came and took a picture of themselves with 20 members from their chapter, that he would come and bring pizza with his team to each of these different sorority or fraternities this next week if they came to the women's game. And I loved that. I thought that was just so awesome that he would get out there and want more fans. But boy, they had over 1,500 also against Montana just 2 days later. So, just really great to see all of the women's basketball fans get behind this Idaho team.
Right.
They're making history this year. There's still a few weeks to go, but they're in the driver's seat right now, CT.
Right. And, it could come down to, and you never know, because once it comes to the Big Sky tournament, anything can happen. But, it could be a rematch of a championship game, the two games they've played, it being the third. But, don't count out Idaho State, who goes on the road and wins 2, and they're 9-3, so they're right there knocking on the door as well. Idaho State win over NAU and also Northern Colorado.
Yeah, let's talk about that Northern Colorado game.
Yes.
I mean, because
Northern Colorado was ahead and leading, and then Idaho State comes back, behind the leadership and the play of your girl, Tasia Jordan. She's just had such an exceptional year, a grad student. And I was looking up her information. She's played 3 years at Idaho State, 3 years at Kirkwood Community, because she's a 6th-year student. And think about the experience.
Right.
Her compared to, you got these young freshmen, it's Eastern Washington's little freshman sensation who's playing well.
Yes,
or Northern
Bowers.
Arizona. You got her,
right?
And here's these freshmen, but here's a 6th-year player leading Idaho State. I'm just so impressed with Tasia Jordan.
Idaho State's just getting really good offense. Casey Spink exploded for 20 in this game. You got Tasia Jordan with 16, Piper Carlson with 11, and then it goes right down the list. And you got Alyssa Abey with 8, Aspen Caldwell with 6. I mean, you just go down, and he's getting so much offense. And 73 points is a lot for Idaho State to put up.
It is. And a lot of it is, second chance point opportunities. They just stay after. They win the 50-50 ball. They tie up rebounders. They do so many intangibles that you can't teach, right? And it's just amazing to see how hard Coach Sobolewski gets his kids to play. I say it every time, but I'm just so impressed with the effort and energy that Idaho State brings to the table every single game.
So in this final stretch of conference play, we've got Idaho sitting at 10-1, Montana State at 10-2, Idaho State at 9-3, and Northern Colorado at 8-4. And then we have that middle range where we have Eastern Washington, Sac Stat, NAU, and Montana all kind of battling for those middle, you want to get a top 6, right? You want to get that first round bye in Boise. And then we have Portland State and Weber State that have struggled. But CT, let's talk about Coach Gentile Jackson getting her first win.
I know she did finally get her first win, and you could tell it was such a big relief, at home to get that win over Sac State. The kids were happy. You just feel for any team, right? When they're just they still play hard. They're in so many games and just aren't able to put the game away. So it's nice to see them get that win. Portland State gets their second win against Sac State 64-62. So Sac State's got 2 wins and Weber State got their first win.
Yeah, I know. It's really nice to see, though, because I feel like these teams have been putting together, good spurts of basketball, but we just haven't seen 4 quarters. So loved seeing the celebration of Gentile Jackson kind of getting the whole, water bottles, everything thrown at her in the locker room afterwards. But Emma Nopu had a game, CT. 19 points, 8 rebounds. Hannah Robbins also contributed, Billy Linnae, and then Paris Laro. Am I saying that right? But it sounded like she had a good game, too.
Yeah.
So
hit from the 3-point line, especially in the first half. Yes.
Yeah, so you want to be trending in the right direction in this last few weeks of play. And so it's been really fun. Has there been any surprises for you?
No, I was really looking forward to watching the Idaho-Montana State game. Yeah. Just because Arthur Marrera has done so many different things, and he's been in so many different places and been under other coaches. So it was interesting to see what he came up with against Montana State, because they got beat pretty badly at Montana State earlier in the conference season. So to see that, it was fun to watch. And you have to talk about your girl, Hannah Chicken, at Portland State. She had 22 points.
I know. She really did. She had herself a game. She shot really well from the free throw line, too. 7 boards. Yeah, it's good to see. I like to see Carly Barres. Obviously, it's really good to get a win at home, too, right? In front of your home crowd. And, yeah, that's just a really big one. Now, Sac State, to me, is just, they've had some struggles. They had 4 players in double figures. Natalie Picton had 17. Ruby Gray had 16. Benta, 14. And it's nice to see Fatu Jete back in and playing.
And it was fun to see her at the Weber State game because I remember her from Northern Arizona. She's such a nice kid, just really first-class person, as well as a great player. And Bentha Versteg and Jete both fouled out with probably 3 or 4 minutes left in the Weber State game. But I had a chance after the game to congratulate Jete and just say,
that's great.
Happy that you're back. And, she had been out for 12 games with a dislocated kneecap.
Watching these players come back. Also, Matt Koenig gets back for Montana, which is really big. They got beat pretty bad by Idaho, but Matt Koenig has 28 points. And so finally she's off her minutes restriction, which I think was really causing problems for Nate Harris in terms of trying to figure out when to insert Mac. When other players have, maybe some momentum going their way, and then you stop and you want to get Mac in there. And it was just hard to see in terms of trying to figure out those rotations, but it sounds like Mac's back. Drea Wacker was inserted into the starting lineup, the Millstone, Montana product, who is certainly,
you love her.
Yeah, she's given
local girls.
I do, but I also love that, she really gets after it. She had 6 points in this game against Idaho, but she has been consistently giving Montana offense when they need it. Against Eastern Washington, Montana dropped a close one by 4 points. Again, Matt Koenig in double figures in that game, but Drea Wacker with 8. So I think we'll see, maybe a different Montana team.
They need a chance to gel with Matt Koenig back in the lineup, and they will. And they've just got so much talent. Nate's just got to figure out how to put it all together and get them in a rhythm and a flow where they all feel comfortable.
Right, and here we go. Boise is coming here in 3 weeks, and this is when Nate Harris shined last year. And so this is when you're wanting to play your best basketball, and you want to be trending in that trajectory of getting ready for Boise. And so this next week, there'll be a test because it's the rivalry part 2. Montana State will come into Dahlberg Arena, which is different. It'll be an entirely different game than what it was in the Brick just 3 weeks ago. So that'll be a fun one. I'm on the call for that one, CT.
At the same time, did they have Mac? Was Mac out for the?
She was out for the last rivalry game.
Have him back, and I'm sure Dahlberg Arena will be rocking with the Cat Griz game, right? So it's coming down to you just hoping teams, hoping Weber State can find a way to, like you say, to put together 4 quarters because even in their game at NAU, they were leading and then they just couldn't score in the last 5-6 minutes.
Yeah.
And Northern Arizona gets the win. So, in Northern Colorado, same thing. They're in the game, but they just haven't had the ability to put a game away. So we'll see what happens, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch all the games. I've enjoyed just so much great basketball.
Hasn't it been really fun? And yeah, you've got Idaho with this 8-game winning streak now, and we'll see. I mean, Arthur Marrero was really concerned last year when they played really well in January, and then they fell off in February before they went into Boise. So as a former coach, it's on everyone's mind, like, hey, I got to keep my players motivated, but they're also, they're getting worn down. So, I mean, you're looking at these minutes. Some of these kids are playing a lot of minutes, and you want to keep your body fresh and your mind fresh. And so as a coach, like, that's got to be challenging, right, CT, heading into this final stretch?
Same thing for Montana State. The way they play, but she plays so many players, and those young kids have gotten so much experience. It'll be interesting to see how they fare in this last part of conference going into the tournament. But her kids, she keeps them fresh.
She does.
They play hard for every minute they're on the floor, and they bought in, and they can continue that because they play so many players.
Yeah, Montana State's just hit some offensive lulls where they just haven't been able to score. Their defense is always going to be there. They're always going to create those turnovers. They're going to get more possessions. But if I were to ask Coach Binford, which I'll get a chance to visit with her this week, I think she would say, hey, sometimes our shot selection isn't there. We take a good shot when we could get a great shot. Right. And I think some of that is also youth, and they get going so fast because they want to push the ball, and maybe then they're pushing pace, but they're not exactly scoring.
Well, and I think people are keen on Cherry. I mean, if you don't stop her and make her give it up, she's going to score on you. She just is, just a phenomenal athlete. And Addie Harris in the post, I just love Addie Harris's play inside the paint. She does so many things in control and strong, solid. She's just a solid inside player for them.
So Taylor Cherrick has been Player of the Week 5 times so far this season. And so she has just put up some ridiculous stats, CT. Right. When I take a look at our preseason team, Bente Veersteeg was our preseason MVP. We had Matt Koning, Taylor Cherrick, Courtney Grossman, Avery Waddington, and Hope Hassman on the first team. I would argue that all of those players have had their moments this year. They're warranted and they're valid to be there, but it's going to be interesting to see because we've watched, some other players, Tasia Jordan, Tatum West, Naomi White, who is our freshman that has still come into the scene and is still averaging almost 22 points a game. I mean, there's been some other players that have just...
Eastern Washington's freshman.
Elin Bowers.
I mean, phenomenal little point guard that can score, can handle the ball, can distribute the ball. I've just been really impressed with her play as a freshman.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that they've got a diamond in the rough there. And Jody Gleason said, hey, Krista, I know you want to talk about Courtney Grossman because you absolutely think, and she's amazing, but check out our freshman, and she'll be there.
No, she is, she's the real deal. She's fun to watch.
Yes, and she's number 5 in scoring for the Big Sky at 15 points a game. So, I mean, those are just some phenomenal numbers that these kids are putting up.
We have some really incredible freshmen in the league that they don't play like freshmen. They play like veteran players that are leading their team, and they're playing great.
Well, CT, it is always great to get your perspective. This is just getting so much fun. It gets more fun every week as we get closer to crowning a regular season champion
and everything that's going on, the Olympics, the Super Bowl was just on. If you're not a sports fan right now, you're not breathing. You're not living, because it's been great. Just a fun time in sports right now.
Well, I was ready for NFL to be done, so I did not want to watch Seattle win a Super Bowl down in our stadium.
You San Francisco 49er fan.
That was tough.
I wanted the Seahawks, and to see. I love Cooper Kupp, and I love Rashid Shaheed, Big Sky football players in the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. How can you not love that?
That's true.
And there are many more.
I give you that, CT. I'm turning my focus to figure skating. I absolutely love the figure skating in the Olympics. So for a little bit here, I'm switching pages. But boy, we have a lot of fun basketball. So what calls are you on this week?
I have, tonight is Idaho, yes.
Yes.
We get to see Idaho in person tonight.
That's great.
Eastern Washington on Saturday. So 2 teams I'm really looking forward to seeing play.
Great. Well, I
love to see them personally. You can watch on ESPN Plus, and that's great because so many games, but to get to see them from courtside and watch the coaches in their mode, I love it.
Can't wait, CT. Well, let's have another great week, and I'll see you next week right here on Hoop Hits with CT, brought to you by the Big Sky Conference. Thanks, CT.
Thank you.
Thanks as well to Jon Kasper, Senior Associate Commissioner for Championships and Media Partnerships for the Big Sky Conference, for the insight and for taking the time with me today. And thanks to all of you for listening. This week's episode of the Krista Redpath Show was brought to you by Vertical Rays and the Good Food Store. Coming up next week, a great conversation with Megan Robinson, the Director of Broadcast and Digital Media for the Big Sky Conference, who was just covering the Super Bowl.